Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome. Uh, we're in this thing early on a Saturday morning, right on 8:30. Finally was able to get in here and start on time. And so, like we always do, whether we in the record or we in a live, we're gonna talk about the Baltimore Ravens. And I know without a lot of news, no signings, no activity, no buzz, right? You got to be creative, right? And so this is that space we're in. Basically, from now until training camp, it's going to be improv. And this conversation, man, we're going to get into today is really about the Ravens reaching the Super Bowl. And like I told you guys on Thursday when we were doing Thursday night football, which will be again next Thursday, I told you that there was a team about a decade ago that we can look back to that there's a lot of similarities, a lot of likenesses that the Baltimore Ravens could pull from or take some notes from. Not a literal. Let's look back at this team in particular and learn from them. But it was some things based on how that team was constructed that's similar to how our current team is constructed. There was some things about that team as far as its star power, its talent level, and its depth that we can kind of point to with our current team. And then something happened pretty amazing in that season, in particular, for the team that we're going to talk about, that I think could happen for the Baltimore Ravens in 2025. And so I do not have the chat on for me, so I can't see what you guys are commenting about, and that's okay. But I want you to hear me all the way out before you dispute the content, only because I'm gonna make some points of reference over the next 30 or 40 minutes. So let's get into it. I think that the Baltimore Ravens in 2025 are one of the top three teams in contention for a Super Bowl. And I should say a top four team because it needs two teams in the NFC, two teams in the AFC championship games in order to advance. But right now, I think top contenders are the Baltimore Ravens, the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think the Detroit Lions are the top contenders. I could go into some other teams, but I think those three have what it takes based on their quarterback play, based on team composition, based on some of the coaching aspects. I think they have exactly what it takes to go win the chip. And we know that the Philadelphia Eagles are the reigning champs. But let's get into the comparison. The team I'm comparing the Baltimore Ravens to, and I'll probably do this a couple of times this summer, but the team that I'm comparing the Baltimore Ravens to is the 2015-2016 Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers have been to, I think, two Super Bowls in their history. The most recent one was back in 2016, led by Cam Newton. And I know just outright, you may think that the comparison is between Cam and Lamar. That's not the comparison, really, because I think that although they are both what you would call dual threat quarterbacks, that's not where my comparison is. My comparison is in a couple of different areas of how the team is composed. When you look at that, go back and look at that 2015 Carolina Panthers team, yes, you did have the franchise quarterback, MVP of that particular season, Cam Newton, who had one of his best seasons in his career. That offensive line was pretty solid, not elite, but pretty solid. The running back room was pretty good, led by Jonathan Stewart. They had an All Pro level tight end in Greg Olson. They had B level receivers to be nice. um, uh, led by, I guess you could say that season would have been Ted Ginn, maybe, um, or Philly Brown, somebody who you may not even remember, maybe even a throwback in Jericho Cotchery. When you jump to the defensive side of the ball, they had nice depth in the trenches, had some star power there. They had elite level linebacking play. And then they had in the secondary Josh Norman, All Pro, uh, Kirk Coleman, safety, ball hawk, uh, 7 interceptions that season in particular. And then they had Robert McLean, who was a solid number two, not elite, but just a solid number two. Now, why would I compare this team to this current iteration of the Ravens? Well, let's do some comparison. Now, we can only compare how this team is composed of right now, but what we saw from our team last season. When you look at the 24-25 Ravens and you kind of come into this season, it's going to be a very, very similar roster with a few key additions, that being DeAndre Hopkins and Jair Alexander. Those are the major two additions as far as notable names. But everything else is going to be very, very similar. Okay. Let's break down offense first. Carolina had a dual threat quarterback, MVP level at that time. The Baltimore Ravens have a two-time MVP level quarterback, should have won a third last season in Lamar Jackson, and they could do it both with their arm and their leg, although I believe Lamar Jackson is a level above Cam, right? When you jump to the running back room, I think we have one of the deepest running back rooms in the league, but specifically, Derrick Henry is a big, powerful back who also has some speed. Jonathan Stewart, a big, powerful back who had deceptive speed. Now, he does not have or did not have the breakaway speed as a Derrick Henry, but he did have deceptive speed. All right. When you look at the tight end room, right, All Pro and Greg Olsen. Also, they had a former Baltimore Ravens on that tight end in that tight end room in Ed Dixon, and they did run some two tight end sets. Ed Dixon made a whole host of plays that season for the Carolina Panthers. We too have some two tight end scheme with Mark Andrews and also Isaiah Likely. When you jump to the wide receiver room, now our wide receiver room is exponentially better than what theirs was. Okay. But I'm gonna tell you what offset that, which is what I think we can kind of pick up on for us this season. But when we go to the offensive line, okay, that offensive line had two All Pros on it. Our offensive line, or excuse me, Pro Bowlers on it. Our offensive line has two Pro Bowlers on it in Ronnie Stanley and Tyler Linderbaum. That particular team, here's some similarities. That particular team had a question all season about the validity of right tackle Mike Remmers. The question was in Carolina, could Mike Remmers hold up under heavy competition for an entire season? And he did okay. But when he got to the playoffs, he was exposed. Von Miller, who is elite, exposed him over and over and over. Okay. When you come to this iteration of the Baltimore Ravens, what is our question? We don't have a lot of questions about Ronnie Stanley, Tyler Linderbaum. We don't have as many questions anymore about a Daniel Falele. Not even Roger Rosengarten, but we do have a question about the left guard position. So for the Carolina Panthers, what was questionable was right tackle, and for the Baltimore Ravens, what's questionable is the left guard. So as you can see, offense for offense, there was some similarities. Please hear me. I'm not telling you that they're the same. I'm not telling you that the caliber of player is the same. I'm saying how the team was made up is very similar. Okay. Let's jump to the defensive side of the ball. The makeup of the Carolina Panthers in that season in particular, they had big interior linemen led by Star Lataelu. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing it correctly, but you remember him after he went to the Buffalo Bills. They had Another big interior lineman, but I can't remember his name at this point. They also had a young, talented guy like a Coney Ely who always showed flashes, but never really uh, came full circle. And shortly after that, I think he went to the Patriots, and then he was out of the league. Uh, Interior linebacker, elite with Shaq Thompson, Thomas Davis, and Luke Kuechly, the best position group in the league at that time. And then, of course, I told you about the secondary. Well, let's jump to our defense. We have really talented players in where? The interior of the defense. Meta BK, Travis Jones, and then we added Jenkins to that interior. We too have a young pass rusher, such as the Carolina Panthers did in Odafe Oweh, who was always building, but never really turned into what he needed to be. Now, this is not based on potential and what a player is going to become. This is just me saying there are some similarities, and I'm gonna get to what made the difference. All right, and then they had some other fill-in parts who played well in that season. We have an elite linebacker in Roquan Smith, which is very similar to what they had. Now they had a trio. We have one, and we're waiting on his partner to be revealed, meaning who's going to play beside him. Okay. And then in that secondary, right? Uh, Kurt, Kurt Coleman, uh, Jeremiah, I do agree. I do agree with what you're saying for sure. I think Philly is a great comp, and it has been a while. But I'm thinking about teams who we've seen visit the Super Bowl, and so I wanted to kind of find something that's find something very 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 similar. And so when we think about that team in particular, Kirk Coleman, ball hawk, 7 interceptions. Well, what do we have to go out and do? We had to go out in this particular draft and get a ball hawk, right? Now, what I believe, so when you look at the composition of that team, it's not an exact match. Please hear that. But the composition of that team and the style of play that they wanted to play, they wanted to run the ball, complement it with the pass, play hard-nosed defense. What do the Ravens want to do? Run the ball, complement it with the pass, and it may be a little more this year than complement, and then play hard-nosed defense, right? But here is what set that Carolina team apart when they went 15-1, and they were dominant. I mean, when I watched them that particular season, they were dominant. But here is what changed the game for them. They took the ball away. I didn't know it until I went back and looked it up. The Carolina Panthers had 39 takeaways that particular season, 24 interceptions, and then a whole lot of fumble recoveries, things of that nature. Now here's what's interesting. Here's why I like where the Baltimore Ravens are headed. They had 39 takeaways, which kind of offset some down moments in that offense when the offense was stalled out. But the defense was so elite. But what have the Baltimore Ravens focused on? What have we heard coming out of OTAs, mini camps, things like that? That we're elevating the focus on what? Taking the ball away. And I think for that team in particular, even though they had a misfit of a collection of talent at wide receiver, they had a Pro Bowl level tight end and a solid second dude, but their perimeter weapons were not elite. But what was happening is when you take the ball away repeatedly, when you look at 39 takeaways in a regular season, that I'm with you, Jeremiah. I think they will, and I'm finna tie that bow on what I'm saying here in a second. And so when you think about it, right, when you have 39 takeaways, that's almost, because that was a 16 game season back then. That's 2.2 dot 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 takeaways per game, which means you give your offense an opportunity to score 14 additional points. Not that they always scored 2 touchdowns every takeaway, but that's the potential to be able to score more points. That offset, right? That ability to take the ball away is what offset the Carolina Panthers' lack of wide receiver talent and when the offense will stall out. Because when you get 39, think about this, when you get 39 extra cracks at scoring, that puts your opponents at a huge deficit. And not only did they have 39 takeaways in the regular season, that ability to take the ball away went on into the playoffs and ended up in the Super Bowl where they had at least 2 takeaways because Coney Ely was actually on pace to win the Super Bowl MVP if they had won because he ended up with 3 sacks and two fumble recoveries. And so when you get that kind of momentum to take the ball away, it just kind of becomes almost natural. And so I think that when we have increased our focus this offseason on taking the ball away, I think that is what takes us over the top. Now, there's a whole host of other things that have to be in play, right? That particular season, here's some other similarities. That particular season, they were remarkably healthy. That particular season. Well, excuse me. Well, for the Baltimore Ravens, guess what we were last season? Remarkably healthy until Zay went down in the Pittsburgh game. And then I think Bate went down in the Buffalo game. But other than that, we were remarkably healthy. And so that was another factor that kept them building momentum. I remember that was a season that nobody expected. Um, right. Jeremiah, I hear you. Make him hold the ball, and it's a wrap. 100%. Jeremiah, you must be pretty tall if you was an edge. You have to be at least 6'3" or bigger. Um, is that where you are? 6'3" or bigger? Sorry. This is a sidebar with Jeremiah because me and Jeremiah we've been going back and forth for over a year now, maybe 2 years now. Right. No, I agree. The top two the wide receivers is a lot. And so I think in particular, this is the type of season where we can catch early momentum. You can already feel it. If there is a such thing, right? If there is a such thing as off-season momentum, this is where we are. We can feel the whole environment. I got you, Jeremiah. Jeremiah say you're a monster. Okay, no doubt, no doubt. Um, but this is the kind of off season, man, where we can already feel the momentum, if there's a such thing. I mean, think about it, right? When we jumped out the gates, like we always do, not fast, but at our regular pace, we resigned Stanley, we picked up Hopkins, and then we brought back Talon Wallace, and I think we made okay 6'5", 240. Okay, yeah, definitely a monster for sure. Um, and so we jumped out the gates and we slowed down a little bit, and then we gradually grabbed a little bit here, a little bit there. But what we were doing was filling in holes. We grabbed Noteboom, added some veteran depth. Then we fell into the draft and grab Starks and Mike Green and so on and so forth. And we start filling in the pieces to the puzzle. And so now, man, I think the excitement began to build. And then we come out of the June 1st cuts and we grab Alexander. And so the secondary composition puts me in mind of that Carolina Panthers backfield. Nobody knows who Robert McClain is. Our guys have a little more notoriety because of their status. Nate Wiggins is a first round pick. Marlon Humphrey, first round pick, been in the league for a minute, and then Jair Alexander was one of the most elite guys when he's healthy in the league. But that particular secondary was pretty good in their own right. You know, Josh Norman was an All Pro. Robert McClain, nobody really knew about. He kind of came out of nowhere, but he played well that particular season. Kurt Coleman had been a cast off from the New Orleans Saints. And I do not remember who played the other. I want to say it was Captain Mutherland, but I think Captain Mutherland was a slot corner. Nevertheless, man, uh, uh, that secondary and the capacity to take the ball away, along with the linebackers, is really what pushed the Carolina Panthers into the Super Bowl. Well, Belanger, here's the magic question. Why didn't they win? The Carolina Panthers did not win the Super Bowl because of the elite talent that the Denver Broncos had along their defensive front. That's the truth. It's when elite. You're exactly right. You're 100% correct. Alexander for nothing is almost cheating. You're 100% correct on that. So why didn't that Denver Broncos team win? Excuse me. Why didn't that Carolina Panthers team win the Super Bowl? I mean, think about it. 39 takeaways. They had 44 sacks. Again, that still puts us in the same kind of context as where we are in Baltimore. The Baltimore Ravens led the league in sacks last season. That particular team had 44 sacks, which didn't lead the league, but they were way up there. But why didn't they win the Super Bowl? Because they ran up against elite trench talent. When I think, if I'm remembering correctly, that Denver Broncos team, I'm not even talking about the secondary. That secondary doesn't matter to me. I'm talking specifically why the Carolina Panthers did not win the Super Bowl. Von Miller destroyed Mike Remmers over and over and over in that game. And off the other end was DeMarcus Ware. And although Michael Orr, former Baltimore Ravens, Michael Orr, same guy, although he had played well during the regular season, you know, he played okay in the Super Bowl, but not elite. And when you have elite edge rush, but you got mediocre offensive line talent, the elite edge rusher is going to win. And DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller caused havoc for Cam Newton in that game in particular. It wasn't that Cam played terribly. I know he had the fumble that he was excoriated for not jumping on the ball. I can't explain why he didn't do it. He explained it, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But when Cam was given time in that game in particular to throw the ball, he threw it well. He threw it exceptionally well. In fact, if you guys remember, 100%, I do agree with that, Jeremiah. Von Miller and DeMarcus were one of the best duos for sure. And when you think about, but when Cam had time, right, he delivered the ball well. There were several things in that game in particular that didn't go right for the Carolina Panthers. Jericho Cotchery made a first down catch that they called a incompletion. That was a catch. And if you remember that game specifically, Akeem Talib, grabbed Philly Brown, who was leading the Panthers in receiving in that game in particular. And he grabbed Philly Brown by the helmet after Philly Brown made a catch and threw him to the ground. Philly Brown had a concussion, left the game, did not return. And that changed life for the Baltimore Ravens. I know you don't remember who Philly Brown was, because if you didn't watch Carolina Panthers in that season, you wouldn't have known until you saw him on the field that season, and you wouldn't have known him after that. But even though they had elite secondary play, Akeem Talib, and I think it was, who was that other guy that played cornerback for them? He was good. Shoot. I can't remember. I know it was not Champ Bailey. No, it wasn't Champ, but Champ Bailey was already gone. I can't remember. Anyway, but so it wasn't necessarily the secondary. It was the defensive front. and they harassed the Carolina Panthers over and over and over. So when I bring the similarities up, the question mark all year long about Mike Rimmers at right tackle, it's the same kind of question mark we're going to have at the left guard position. But I wanted to make that comparison because I do believe if the Baltimore Ravens are able to increase their turnover count, because if you know, just in case you guys didn't know, kind of context is we only had 17 turnovers last season. And although Lamar Jackson only had 4 interceptions and we were elite offensively, put up a lot of points, not being able to take the ball away does hurt when we get in crunch time. Like the Cleveland Browns game, we should have had 3 or 4 picks. The Oakland Raiders game, when Gardner Minshew put up good numbers against us in the second half, we should have had at least 2 picks in that game. I think there was a chance or two in the Buffalo Bills game where we had an opportunity to take the ball away and we didn't do it. And so if we can increase that part of our game beyond talent, you can have talent, but if you don't optimize opportunities, Jeremiah said guards are just tackles with philosophy. That's pretty good. Yeah, I agree. I agree that we always find a guard, but we know that uh, exterior pressure, meaning off the edge, Lamar Jackson does have an ability to maneuver. He has an ability to maneuver around all kinds of pressure, interior or exterior, right, or external pressure. But when you get immediate pressure right in the face of the quarterback, you kind of change the dynamic of that play. And so that's why I'm saying guard. And again, I'm not telling you that the left guard position is going to be devastating to what we do this season. I'm saying the similarity, right, is what are we going to do at left guard? Who's going to start? Versus what they had going on that season was, is Mike Rimmers good enough to hold up all season long at the right tackle position, right? And then we saw again in the Super Bowl where he gave up multiple pressures. But again, I think with the talent level we have on both sides of the football, the Baltimore Ravens do not have any excuse, right? We don't have any excuse not to make it to the AFC Championship and proceed to the Super Bowl, right? We cannot go backwards from where we were 2 seasons ago. We can't be in the AFC Championship and then bow out in the divisional round and not get past that with this level of talent. And so I think one of the great catalysts, for this particular season is taking the ball away. If we can get that done, and it don't have to be at the clip of 39, right? We only had 17 this past season. Can we get 24, right? Can we get 28, right? I mean, it's amazing to get 39 takeaways, but can we increase it by 40%, right? Can we get into that? Can we increase it by 50%? Can we get into that 24 to 28 range? I think that would make a world of difference. And so, man, that's what I got for you guys today, man. Just wanted to talk about that kind of comparison. I'm going to be searching history, not distant history, but I'm going to be searching history about teams who were kind of composed like us. Yeah, I agree. I agree, Jeremiah. Ben Cleveland does look better, but I'm wondering what his suspension is going to look like. It's probably going to be 4 games, probably, which may get reduced to 2 or 3. I think we have enough, right, to kind of offset his absence if he's going to be integral in what we do. But I know that decision has not come out yet, but we'll see. I think Voorhees again, last year he was walking into the season basically being about 12 months removed from that Achilles injury. I think um, I think this season in particular, this will be an off season where he only had to train versus rehab, and so we definitely should see a high level from Voorhees if he is that guy. Again, I think Ben Cleveland does have some potential. I think Emory Jones can factor in if he's not injured. So yeah, I think that we do have some options, and then there's going to be somebody I believe who shakes loose from another team when we start cutting down, and we may be able to pick up somebody and stash them on the practice squad and just kind of keep them around until we need to tap into that. Um, but yeah, man, that's what I got for you guys today. I am gonna and Jeremiah, you are right. The Philadelphia Eagles are a team that has a very similar makeup to the current version of the Baltimore Ravens, for sure. And but since we're competing against them, I don't really want to be our comparison. but yeah, you're right, and I may do that comparison in a over the next week or so. So listen, man, I appreciate you guys. Again, whether you catch it in the record or in the live, you're still appreciated. Do me a favor, hit like and subscribe. And until